Okay, class, I would like to go over this test 1-2 review so that we can go through the answers of that. All right? So here we go. Question number 1 says, which of the following sets of numbers does -9 belong? Okay, we know -9, okay, is an integer. Okay, so we know for a fact that it's one of these. So could it be a counting number? Well, we know our counting numbers are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So there are no decimals, no fractions, and no negative numbers. Okay, could it be a whole number? Well, we know the whole numbers are just counting numbers and 0. Okay, so here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, no negative numbers, no decimals. But -9 is an integer because it is one of the opposites of a whole number. So it is an integer. But integers are also rational numbers. So it could actually be both of those. Okay, number 2. Set A, the numbers 0, 5, and 9. Says set A is not a subset of which set of numbers? Subset means just a part of. Okay, so we look at 0, 5, and 9. Is that a rational number? Yes, every one of those are rational numbers. So that one is an okay one, but we're looking for which one is not a subset. This is a subset of rational numbers. Could this be a subset of integers? Yes, it could be. Could it be a subset of the whole numbers? Yes, it could be. But what about our counting numbers? It could not be a subset of the counting numbers because of the 0. So D is the answer choice that works here. Number 3. Adeline uses the diagram below to explain the relationship between integers and rational numbers. So we know that integers are part of the set of rational numbers. It says, which of the following rational numbers does not belong in the subset of integers? Okay, so that goes back to the first one when we looked at our definition. And we know integers are the set of whole numbers and their opposites. So when you look at them on a number line, there's the 0, 1, 2, 3. There's the -1, -2, -3, and so on. So we have no fraction or decimal parts. Okay, so we look at our answer choices. We've got 5 over 2. Well, 5 over 2 is the same thing as 2.5. So which of the following rational numbers does not belong in the set of integers? Well, A is one of those. So keep going because you could have more than one answer because it says which of the following rational numbers, plural. So -8, yes, that's an integer. -9.6, probably not. Now I skipped one on purpose. -9.6, it's got a decimal part, so it is not an integer. So this one is 1. But then we've got this -18 over 3. Well, if you simplify that, what is 18 divided by 3? This is the same thing as -6. So it is an integer. So A and D are the answer choices for this problem. The next part of this test is just a skill level section. Okay, so this is the part where we're having to think about our rules. That if I have an addition problem, we know that there are 2 rules. If we have the signs alike, we add them. If our signs are different, we subtract them. If we have a subtraction problem, we change subtraction to addition, next number to its opposite, and then go back to our addition rules. Signs alike add, signs different subtract. Then we have a multiply problem. Well, we just talked about multiply just the other day, and multiply means that I multiply my numbers, and then I go back and count my negative signs. If I have 1 negative, my answer is negative. If I have 2 negatives, my answer is positive. Okay? And division. Well, division and multiply have the same rules. So step number 1, divide your numbers as though there were no signs there. And then count your negatives. If I have 1 negative, it's negative. 2 negatives, make it positive. So let's see what the answers to these questions are. Here I have a -15 plus 9. My signs are different, so I subtract those numbers. 15 take away 9 gives me 6. The 15 has more, or it's got the greater absolute value, so my answer is a -6. Okay, I've got 22 plus -15. My signs are different, so again, I subtract my numbers. 22 take away 15 is 7. The 22 has more this time. Okay, there's more positives, or it has the greater absolute value, so then it is +7. And no, you don't have to put the positive sign. Now, we've got a minus problem. Now, what we've taught you in minus, in the subtraction problem, is you leave the first number alone, change subtraction to addition, and the next number to its opposite. So now we have a -10 plus +17. So our signs are now different, So we subtract. 17 take away 10 is 7. And the 17 has a greater absolute value, so it's a positive 7. Now with multiply, we first look at multiply. So we multiply them together. And we do 12 times 9. And we multiply. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So I end up with 108. Okay, and I've got one negative, so my answer is negative. Okay, 2/3 plus negative 2/3. Well, it's a fraction problem. Don't be scared of that. Okay, our signs are different, and it's plus, so we subtract. 2/3, take away 2/3, just gives us 0. Number 9, I've got a negative 16 minus a negative 5. So we change subtraction to addition next to its opposite. So I end up with negative 16 plus positive 5. So my signs are different, so I subtract. 16 take away 5 is 11. The 16 has more, and it's negative. Okay, now let's look at this next section. This next section is still just computation. We're still just doing the math, but I also want you to practice on your gridables. So when we look at number 10, we'll notice that it is a subtraction problem. So we're going to change subtraction to addition, next number to its opposite, and now you notice that our signs are alike, so we're going to add them together, and we end up with a negative 62. So if we're going to put that in the grid, we've got to put it according to the decimal. So we would write the 6 and the 2 in those two spots because it's 62 point, and we would put in a negative because we will bubble in the negative. So we bubble in the negative, we bubble in the 6, and we bubble in the 2, and that's all you do. Okay, now number 11 is a multiply problem. Now don't be scared about this. Okay, we just have two decimal numbers that we're going to multiply. They just happen to both be negative. So that means my answer is going to end up being a positive, because in multiply two negatives make a positive. So now I'm going to just line these up just like normal. I write 14, I write the 62, because in multiply decimals, we need to remember that we don't have to worry about lining up the decimals because we deal with the decimal at the end. Okay, so we put our decimals in, they do happen to line up, and now we multiply. 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2, move over a spot, 6 times 4 is 24, write the 4 down, carry the 2, 6 times 1 is 6, 7, 8. Okay, then we add 8, 6, 8. So we end up with 868. Now we got to deal with our decimal. So this number has one decimal place. This number has one decimal place. So in my answer, we have 2. So we end up with 8.68. So to write that according to our decimal, we put the 8 on the left-hand side. We put the 68 on the right-hand side. And it is positive because there's two negatives. So we bubble it. So we come down to the 8, bubble, bubble the 6, bubble the 8. Now we have a division problem. So we know for division of integers, we divide. 50 divided by 2 is 25. A negative, give me a positive. So now to bubble that, the 25 has to go in according to the decimal. So 2 and 5. Now let's go to the word problems. Number 13, the temperature in Anchorage, Alaska at 6 a.m. was 2 degrees Celsius. If the temperature drops 2 degrees each hour, what is the temperature in degrees Celsius at 2 p.m.? Okay, so the first thing that we need to know is how many hours are we talking about here? So we look at 6 a.m., and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 1 and 2. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that you can do this one. Mathematically, you could write a math problem, or you could just say at 6 a.m., it's 2 degrees. Okay, then it's going to drop 2 degrees every hour. So at 7 o'clock, it's 0. At 8 o'clock, it's -2. At 9 o'clock, -4. At 10 o'clock, -6. At 11, -8. At 12, -10. At 1, -12. And at 2, -14 degrees. Okay, so that's one way that you can do this. Okay, another way is you look at, again, how many hours are we talking about? At 6, we got 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours that we're talking about. Okay, so mathematically, we would do, it starts at 2, and now we're going to go down 2 degrees for 8 hours. Okay, so for 8 hours time, we're going to drop 2 degrees. Okay, so if we actually do the math in order of operations, we're going to do the math here first. 2 times 8 is 16. So now we have 2 minus 16, which we know when we're doing integers, change subtraction to addition next to its opposite. Negative 16 and 2 make negative 14 degrees Celsius. So my answer is negative 14. Number 14. Okay, this one's a little bit tough. It's got a lot of numbers in it. Ms. Ming had $170.55 in her checking account. She wrote checks for the following amounts, $55.76 and $69.82. She made a deposit of $45. What is the new balance of Ms. Ming's checking account? Okay, so we start at $177.55. That is our starting point. Now we know that deposits is money going into my account. So I could go ahead and add $45 to my account, remembering that I needed to line my decimals up. So now I add 5 and 5 make, or 5 and 0 make 5, 5 and 0, 5, 0 and 5, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 2. So that means we've got a total of $215.55 in the bank account. And now we need to write checks of $55.76 and $69.82. So that's money coming out of your account. So we're going to subtract. So I'm going to subtract $55.76 from it. Okay, so we borrow here, and 6 take away, or 15 take away 6 gives us 9. This is a 5, so it's now a 4 when I borrowed. So I borrow again from the 5, and it becomes now a 14. So 14 take away 7 is 7. Bring the decimal down. Borrow one more time here. That becomes a 14. So 14 take away 5 again gives us 9. And then 20 take away 5, because that's a 20 take away 5 gives us 15. So we're down to $159.79. And now we've got to write one more check of $69.82. So we subtract one more time. 9 take away 2 is 7. Okay, I can't do this one, so I borrow. 17 take away 8 is 9. Bring the decimal down. This is an 8. Can't do that, so I borrow. So 18 take away 9 is 9. Borrow again. 14 take away 6 gives us 8. So we end up with $89.97 left in our bank account. Last two, assets and liabilities. The table below shows the financial assets and liabilities owned by Ms. Smith. Based on the information above, what is Ms. Smith's net worth? And we know assets, we add them all together. These are things that we own. Liabilities, things that we owe. So if we add this amount up, we get $14,998 and $6,000. We add that together, we get 8, 9, 9, 10, $20,998 in assets. We have $35,000 in liabilities, and we learned that net worth is assets minus liabilities. Okay, so now I can't actually do that, so I change my subtraction to addition. Next number to its opposite. Now I know I subtract those two numbers. So 35,000 minus $20,998. Okay, so I come over here to the 5, I borrow, it's 4, borrow all the way across. So 10 take away 8 is 2, 9 and 9 make 0, 9 and 9 make 0, 4 and 0 make 4, 3 and 2 make 1. So we end up with $14,002, but since the $35,000 is the one that has the greater absolute value, you have a net worth of negative $14,002. Okay, oh, put the dollar sign. Last problem. The altitude of Death Valley, California is 282 feet below sea level. A hot air balloon is launched from the bottom of Death Valley and rises at a rate of 10 feet per second. After 12 seconds, what's the new altitude of the balloon? Okay, so it starts out as 282 feet below sea level, so that's a negative. And it's going to rise, add 10 feet per second for 12 seconds. So that's 10 feet per second for 12 seconds. So that becomes a multiply part. So we've got negative 282 plus 10 times 12 gives us 120. Our signs are different, so we subtract. So 282 minus 120 gives us 261. So that means that this balloon is at an elevation of negative 162 feet because the 282 is negative. So if you can do all of this, then you can be successful on the test.